G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by Algared, and our special guest is Loudsguns. How you doing, Mr. Loudsguns?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Reminds me of I'm good. It reminds me of that guy from The Simpsons. You know, the 1, 2, 3, 4. You know.
Yeah. It's a bit of an old name, and it's now highly misleading, given I spend a lot of my time on industrial gameplay. But yeah, the name's stuck. Yes. You can't change names from 15 years ago.
That's kind of how it happens.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah, I relate to that. So, you came up with today's topic, which is a little bit about you want to talk about orgs and the problems that are associated with them. But before we kind of get into that, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do on your channel?
Yeah,
and so, yourself, I guess.
Yeah. I started my channel a couple of years ago, and it was mostly because I started an org with a couple of friends I met in game, and when it got to the lofty heights of 20 people, it was quite hard to get around everybody teaching them how to do things like mining Quantanium. So I got to take a look back at it just earlier this weekend and noticed my first video was sort of a crappy headset mic. I'm pretty sure I shot it all in one take because I didn't understand video editing at all. So I redid that Quantanium mining run about 3 times because I made the occasional error in talking.
When you talked about editing, then that's why we do it this way, because we don't want to do editing. Like, we understand it, we just don't want to do it. It's frustrating as hell. So yeah.
The second you said that, we both started to go.
Yep. And we've done all the headset mics and all that as well. That's how we all kind of get started and stuff like that. So yeah. I relate to everything you said.
Yeah, so a lot of it was just instructional. And just sort of how to do this, how to do this.
So you were teaching so many people that it was just like, oh man, I must have been making these videos and get them to watch the video instead. Is that kind of how it went? That's what it feels like.
Yeah, pretty much. That was my idea. My idea was, have a little channel in the Discord. I didn't expect anybody else to watch it, I'll be honest. Have a little channel in the Discord with a few sort of starter guides and things, because people meet people, they bring them into a Discord. All of a sudden I've got some people who are from the States, some people who are from Australia and I couldn't get around everybody. So I thought it'd be useful if we just had a little series of videos.
The rationale you have for your videos there seems to resemble something we had to do with what was it? Fix my fleet.
Just a little bit. No, you had a good video.
We used to get those questions time and time again. We found we were constantly saying the same thing, and then someone else would come in and say, "Hey, I want to fix my phone." We hang it. We'll just do a video series and try and look for different avenues. But
I didn't think people were going to watch it when we did it. I was really hesitant, and then it just kind of mind of its own.
It was certainly something we didn't think would be as popular as it is.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back on topic then for today. So tell us why you want to specifically talk about orgs, and where you want to kick this off, I guess, with what do you find so important about orgs?
Yes, I think a lot of people are put off joining orgs. I think a lot of MMOs recently have been effectively solo player games that you play alongside a lot of other people.
Yeah.
So you're running around sort of a city, like in Starset terms, your major landing zones, but in other MMOs, so your capital cities and stuff, there's plenty of population. You see lots of characters with the names over their heads, but you don't really have to play with those other people.
Yeah.
You might get an instanced queue and a party up, that sort of thing, for an occasional dungeon. But ultimately, you can run a lot of modern MMOs. You can just run solo.
They're also very kind of gated. So like the one I'm thinking of is World of Warcraft. Like you really, if you look at the raids and stuff like that, you can only do one a week, right? You can't just keep grinding them and doing it over and over, which is also, it's a gated experience, especially when you're paying. I think it's kind of a bit unfair.
Yeah, that always struck me as odd.
Yeah.
I also have a special place in my heart for hating daily quests, but that's just me.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
I hate
15
them.
skins, broken 45 broken mesas. Yep.
And I think that'll be a bit different in Star System because you've always going to have something to do, and
yeah,
whether it's with other people or solo, but if this rating system goes the way they want it to go, I think it will really helpful for players to get together. I think I get what you're saying. There's a bit of burnout to that playing on your own, and I used to hate some of the professions in some of those games. Like, let's be honest, until now, every MMO when you're gathering is essentially, now and probably there's one or two out there that breaks this slightly, is essentially a bar till it gets to the end of the bar. No, it's just it's a waiting thing, and it's just there's just almost no skill to it. I think Rust is a game I think of where you had to hit the stars. That was a little different, and there's been a few others along the way that have changed it slightly, but nothing to the, like, even though we're only at what they call tier 1 of mining, like that's going to go deeper later. That's still deeper than anything I've ever seen before. You know,
just because you've got not only the scanning but the breaking, the gathering, and then you've got the little explosive charges you can use, or the different heads, and then there's the multiplay. Like if you take a mole, you can take bigger targets, or you got 2 or 3 ships, you can take bigger targets and break down the rock. And
kind of to bring that back to orgs though, like when you go up to say something like an Orion, you're just upping that volume. And Algared, the thing I wanted you to suggest here was what you were talking about with the Vulture and the Reclaimer you found out the other week. Like the big advantage of grouping up.
Yeah, so we were talking ships with myself and a couple of other people, and they were just looking at the value. And the Reclaimer, to buy a Reclaimer is $400, 5 crew. It's got massive, I can't remember the exact density of cargo, but then you looked at the Vulture, which was, but we can do 5 of those, and you get 5 of those, and you go, okay, 5 of those, $150 or $100 per Vulture. That's $500, so you're paying more to set that up. But then you looked at the cargo capacity of those 5 Vultures, and it was significantly less than the Reclaimer.
Yeah.
And so it was more cost effective if you were setting it up to have a big ship.
Yeah.
Than it was to have 5 little ones.
It's also,
just real quick, didn't you work it out to be 16 Vultures to 1 Reclaimer, from what I remember?
Yeah, I think that the cargo capacity of the Reclaimer was like 15 or 16 Vultures in comparison.
Yeah.
And
so this kind of goes back to what we've been saying for all that time about another reason to get the bigger ships because of the earn down economy and stuff like that. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and they finally got the Reclaimer right as well versus the Mole. So like the Reclaimer lasers are each 3 Vulture lasers.
Yep.
So they have different statistics for whether the module's on a Vulture or a Reclaimer, and everything to do with the Reclaimer is 3 times faster per laser.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is better.
Yeah.
And the other thing with that Reclaimer is the fact that even though you've got 5 people and you've got different roles, you can actually rotate those roles. So, I'm getting bored stacking the cargo. Okay, rotate, musical chairs. And everyone, so you can actually train up in each of the skills.
Yeah.
Become a really good stacker, really good miner, really good
that's
salvage or whatever.
That's another important point going into orgs as well, or multi-crew gameplay, is it has more variety. And we have actually looked at ships in the past. Like one of the ones we talked about was the Hammerhead. Like it's really hard to rotate people through that thing because it's mainly turret gunners, and you've got 1 pilot, 1 engineer, and 1 co-pilot. So really you want your best engineer and best pilot. So it's really just the co-pilot that can be rotated. And when you look at it like that, it just, so when you start to look at some of these ships, some are going to be good for rotating and others not so much. But again, I think the ability to rotate over not being able to rotate at all is still huge.
But like if we go back to the Reclaimer and say the Vulture idea and the value of being in an org. So if you're in an org and you've got your group of mates or the org mates and they're running a Reclaimer, that's going to be a lot easier than say running the Vulture, because as we found out when you've been doing salvage, every 5 minutes or every minute, it feels like you got to get out of your seat, run to the back, do the move for crate, run back to. Whereas on the reclaimer, because you've got people actually stationed doing that, when you're in a multi-crew and when you're doing and you ideally want to be using your org to help you do that and your mates to help you do that, it becomes more productive and a lot smoother. So
you can already see a ship there in the middle between the two of them, which is like maybe only 2 people, because it literally, like, 2 to 3 people, because it literally, how do I put this? You can already see just one person, like, because I've tried it in the Vulture with 2 people, just one person in the back and one person scanning, and the efficiency goes up quite a lot. And you got to remember, the other part we don't have yet in salvage is the munching part. So once that comes in, the roles are going to shift again. So you know how we were talking about how you can cycle the roles? In salvage, it cycles again, much like it'll happen in mining as well. Like when you're underground or something like that, it's going to change as well. So yeah, it's interesting to see.
I do kind of wish the Vulture had a bunk bed and had been recommended as a 2-player ship.
But
it is a lot better.
But that's why it is that way, because you can tell that there's another one coming. Like, again, as you said, it's 3 times as powerful. So the one we're looking at will be 2 times as powerful. Like, it perfectly slots right in there. Like, you can see it.
You can see the Vulture really is, or really should be, a 2-player ship. It's just to make it run smoothly, because the way you play the Vulture at the moment, where you have to get out of a seat and stack the cargo, it's the same complaint that people used to have with running a mole solo. Yeah, because you'd have to constantly get out of a pilot seat to adjust it. It almost feels like that type of situation. It almost makes the Vulture the ship you don't want, which goes, okay, I want the bigger ship, which means I'm going to need multi-crew. The best multi-crew are going to be your org mates or your real-life friends. And if you don't, if your real-life mates aren't playing, then your org is where you're going to get those people who you rely on and trust and get to know.
And I think also... finish your thought.
I was just going to say, so that's a real advantage of why you should be looking for an org going forward.
So another thing I wanted to talk about is, obviously, as orgs go up in scale, you also get other things. And one of those for me would be security, right? So obviously when you're in a bigger ship, you got a bigger signature, you can bring more people in. So instead of just 1 Orion, you could scale it up to 5 Orions, and then, you've got a Kraken or a Polaris or a mini fleet protecting you. The more people you have is literally a safety in numbers thing. And because you might not be into mining yourself, again, more versatility. You might want to do combat that day. You might want to do medical that day. You might want to do repair that day. All those things may come into play, especially once you start moving out of so-called safe space, or like standard pyro type of thing. So it just, the numbers scale so much, like, and the versatility and requirements all go up. Just the same as going up in a ship size, so going from an Aurora all the way up to a Kraken, it's the same thing. You're going to get more versatility in roles and have more things to do in an org than you will on your own. The downside to that, we'll talk about later. but can you think of any other reasons there, Loudsguns, for you?
Well, I think just sort of picking up on building on what Al said, for me, it's always been about endgame content and access to endgame content, because so some people our org's sort of medium size, I would say. Is we've got a few hundred members, and some people occasionally have asked me sort of, where do you see it capping out? And personally, I don't think you should put those limits on things. But also, I certainly don't see it capping out at that sort of size, because I look at the potential end game content you might see in Starset, and I personally want to be able to do it. Like, I want to be able to go out and do whatever they come up with that is that end game. And if you've got ships like Javelins, which take, what is it, 80 crew?
83.
Is that the
I think it's the guide? Max of 80 and kind of minimum of 30 or something like that. But yeah,
you can't just stick a Javelin out there.
It's 83, like 43. But anyway.
Yeah. So your Javelin would need, like, to be part of a fleet, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't just have a javelin stuck out on its own. Well, maybe you could. It'd be quite fun, but you'd need the other ships too.
Yeah.
They're going to have to come up with something for that javelin and its fleet to go and kill.
I think the other part about orgs as well, like when you're still going to have places for ships like vultures in an org, right? You're still going to have, like, if those reclaimers are there munching, you're going to have little things that fall off, and whatever ships they add, like a hyena or whatever they add, the ship in the middle, they're going to have need for those, because like it's like, well, the reclaimers here doing this big ship, there's this little small one over here, but we've got like time factors and things like that.
Little bits have fallen off, and unless it's a super valuable part that's fallen off, you're not going to be turning your reclaimer to pick that bit up. You're just going to let it go.
Same thing with the like a prospector versus an Orion. Like there might be a really small, hyper valuable thing in a small rock, and instead of getting the whole Orion to come over and munch the whole rock just to get that tiny little bit, you can send the prospector and drill straight in and just take out the little bit, and that's it. So there are still, again, like every ship is going to have its place, but I think with orgs in general, as you can see, it just gives you more opportunities, more things that you can do. I think you're going to be less bored, and I think, I don't know, what do you guys think on that? Like,
it helps you come up with that's sort of almost splitting it into like the reasons you might want to be in the org for a future, and the reasons you might want to be in an org now as well. So because like I talked about endgame content, but beyond Siege of Orison and Xenothreat, we don't really have much. But the reasons for being in one now is it's things like how more efficient you can already be if you work with a group of other people who are thinking the same sort of way as you. In terms of their level of seriousness, in terms of how hard they want to hit it. Like we did quite an interesting thing with prospectors and moles a little while ago, and you use like the prospectors because they're nippy and they can get into smaller zones, so they can help break up rocks. But then we were using the mole with its increased cargo capacity to actually like scoop up the Quantanium and go and sell it. The prospectors stay in the field looking for the next one.
Yeah. All right, then. Well, you've actually just reminded me of something. You remember I was saying before the show I've forgotten? You remind me. It's now versus release in orgs. So one of the things that Algared and I's org is fairly dormant compared to most orgs. And we've seen, so in our time, like we've been around since the beginning pretty much, me and Algared have seen many orgs come and go because they try to get these people that come into the game, and you see like if it's a solo person, they'll come in, they'll play really hard, and with 2 weeks they'll just burn out because there's just not enough to do. And it's the same thing with orgs. They come in, they're super passionate, they want to get this huge teamwork thing going, and they just peter out. And I've seen very few orgs that have been able to maintain that momentum. There are still ones that exist, and I can think of like at least a dozen, but I've also, Algared, you'll have to kind of agree with here, we've seen orgs just like go really ham and they just topple.
Yep, and like I was thinking of some of the things before you raised the topic of things that orgs do. So I know that Loudsguns, I know you were saying earlier that you've got a racing part in your org, and so they're often, that the orgs themselves often will do things to get things going. So in the past, we used to do something used to like the old Olisar ring racing in Starfarers. So we'd all turn up and we'd race the rings in the Starfarers, or we'd pull up our reclaimers and go reclaimer bowling with a Starfarer, and then you'd set them all up, and then you'd barrel a Starfarer with what was it? Decoupled on, and see how many of the skittles you could knock over, and then you go and set them back up again and do that. So that emergent silly gameplay just is just fun, and it's just playing with the ships and finding out what the ships can do, and but you can't really do that as well when you're solo or with just a pickup group. Whereas when you're with your org can actually kind of either, hey, we're going to do a race. Hey, we're going to do this today. Hey, we're going to do that. And so it gives you that sense of community. Now, in the past, or a lot of people have come into a game, they see the game, they go, oh, that's Alpha, okay, yep, I'll join an org and I'll disappear for a while. Others stay and play the game. And so you've got this whole mishmash of people. And that raises that question, you know, that inactivity of orgs. You've got orgs that are often inactive, or members are inactive. And so how that comes back to, how do you pick an org?
Yeah,
Is I suppose a big question, isn't it?
Before we move on to that, I do want to say, like, I think most of the active orgs I've seen, they don't just focus on Star Citizen either. I've seen a lot of ones that, like in our org, Algared, they do a lot of the Friday night games and stuff like that, don't they? So they have a day where they go through and they play something else and stuff like that, or they have different events, or, but yeah, if you want to find one that's currently active, they do exist. But I think they're a rarer breed personally. But yeah, you've got to be prepared to kind of play outside the game. And this is a real funny thing, Algared, and I have talked about it before, Algared, is when someone goes, I can't afford to buy that game, but I can afford to buy that $500 spaceship. Like, I've never understood that. Like, I'm just like, what are you talking about? You just... But anyway.
Well, when you've said that to me, Execute, it's because I've bought that $500 spaceship and I can't afford that $500 game.
But you get my whole point.
Because I've already spent the money.
I've got priorities, mate. They're just the different priorities.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's move. Go ahead.
We did find that sort of recently, particularly with sort of 3.17 being a harder patch for content, I think is the politest way to say it. We did find sort of the importance of sticking another games channel up in Discord, because what you don't necessarily want is everybody, just the moment Star sits in a bit of a lull, everybody just disappearing off your Discord, and then new people turn up and look at your Discord and see that it's empty.
Do you know? Do you know some of the games off the top of your head that you tried? Because I can think of 2 or 3 that we've tried in the past that work really well, that teach you Star Citizen-like things. So, is there any that you know of?
Yeah, I'm quite big into survival games. That's what I was doing pretty hardcore before I got into Starset. So we've had an ARC server up.
Yep, that's a good one. So playing as a tribe is very similar to playing as a crew on a spaceship.
Yeah.
And
playing against each other is pretty funny as well.
Yep. Which is good, because if you've got more than, if you've got like over 10 people, you can have 2 tribes. Yeah. But one of the good things is the people that go out and like get resources, and then the people that only show up for the fun stuff. So it shows you who the hard workers are and who the ones that are kind of right there for the right reasons.
Up for when something needs exploding. Yeah.
So who are the people who turn up and help build and maintain and?
Because there's always that bit of maintenance, and it'll be the same thing in game. Like, you'll need fuel and all that type of stuff. So any other ones?
We did also play. We played Dark Tide.
Yep.
That was quite good for something completely different, in the words of Monty Python. Because sometimes you just want to hit things with a shock maul.
Yep. But still, it shows you the teamwork, because you've got 4 different classes and you've got to work together to get through those levels. So again, it promotes teamwork, and that is a good one. I've been playing it myself. And
I think the current playthrough is satisfactory. I just checked over, and that's a brilliant game for just understanding sort of supply chains, crafting.
Good for logistics.
That sort of thing that the sort of thing that we hope will make its way into SC one day. So
yep, me too. So all those ones you mentioned are great. I think the only other one that I'd probably mention here is Eco. And Eco taught me a lot about, so it has these things called stockpiles, and it very clearly, as soon as they started talking about how the evolution of the cargo system or refactor in game was going to proceed, it literally is one of the steps is it's going to exactly how Eco has it, and then it's going a step beyond that. So if you've played Eco, you'll know what I'm talking about. And that's got this. So basically in Eco, you kind of play through time periods. So you kind of start out almost like cavemen, then you go to Industrial Revolution, which is like steam based, and or actually it's a step before that. You got horse and cart, and then steam, and then modern day. And you're essentially working as a whole city of people with lots of different professions that all interact with each other to try and stop this asteroid coming to hit your planet. And the default stock mode is 30 days, but a lot of people can't put in 30 days, so you kind of sometimes speed it up to like a fortnight or a week. And yeah, there's everything from mining, engineering, cooking food, hunting animals, farming, like just all these cool different professions. So it's very kind of in line with some of the stuff in Star System, but where it's kind of more past and history based as opposed to science fiction. So if you want a little bit of a taste of where, and it's not exactly the same, obviously, right? But if you want a little taste of what Star Citizen could offer you, that feel of the gameplay, that's why I recommend Eco. But you've got to have some really dedicated people to do it, and you've got to have a dedicated server as well. But yeah, I recommend that to you, Loudsguns, if you get a chance.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, a lot of
There's
these games are effectively problem solving, aren't they?
Yeah.
And a big thing about sort of creating an org for now, I think you have to have a strong sense of community. You know, people have to get to know each other, right, and work together. So it's good to do that in a game. Sorry,
and I think that's a value of even games like Bannerlord. So there have been
like
times,
what, sorry?
you know, Bannerlord. You know, you get on with a multiplayer Bannerlord game. You know, with the individual people. And
sorry, you broke up 3 times when you said it. Sorry, yeah, Bannerlord. My bad. Yep.
You know, so, and that's just working as a team, just to try and do whatever you're doing. Just so, even if it's a game like that or Crusader Kings where you're playing with, it's just that social aspect of getting to know the people in the org and
especially
and
early right now in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
It's the people that have kept me around. So yeah, 100%. All right, so let's move on then to what not to look for in an org, right? Because me and Algared have seen some shockers in our time. So Loudsguns, I'll start with you. What do you think is some really kind of detrimental things that you've seen in an org, like a bad org that you've either been a part of or seen someone else a part of?
Yeah, I think it's worth saying that these orgs which we think are terrible or give terrible signs might be for someone.
Yeah.
You know, I think we've got a kind of similar outlook in terms of not taking everything too seriously. And
yeah, we're being very we're being very generalized here. Like I think Algared put it as red flags, right? And that's
my number one red flag is an org leader who cares about what ships you've got, and an org leader who tells you what ships to buy.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one, and we've seen that ourselves, haven't we, Algared? They get a bit power trippy. They want to have all the big ships. They want the Krakens, the Idrises, and they kind of want to lock you in to the point that you are almost beholden to them. So yeah, I can relate to that. Algared, you got anything?
But I would just on that just be just as worried about an org leader who really, the moment that you say you've got a Kraken, says, "Hey, buddy, welcome to the org," because that's a person who cares a lot more what's about in your wallet and your hangar
than you.
Cares about you as an individual, and that says something about who they've let in the org before you, and the reasons they've let them in the org. So
I find that a red flag. You know, in terms of the Maiva saying, "Don't buy." You know, no, you cannot. We don't want you to buy that. We only want you to have this stuff. Or, oh, you've got that. Awesome. You know, great, fantastic. We needed one of those.
Yeah.
So there is that aspect to look at. And sometimes that helps you. If you've got there and they say, "Hey, we've got these things. We don't really need you to get another one, but if you want to, then go for it." But that can help, someone who's going, "Oh, should I buy one? Should I?" That can help them make those decisions and save money or whatever. Or if they don't feel that pressure from you all to buy it, that can again help. So it's if you can rely on the people in your org to help, they can actually give you some good advice. Sometimes they can also lead you down the garden path. But certainly those red flags are the ones where they just say, "No, don't buy it, don't buy it, don't buy it."
Yeah.
And then you turn around and they say, "Oh, I just bought this," and you go, "But you just told me not to buy it." That.
So, Algared, is there anything else for you that is a red flag that you can think of?
I suppose it comes into the leadership. So if your leadership is just all, you must do this, you must. For me, I dislike being told you cannot have any other org.
Yeah.
You must only be in this org solely. That for me is like.
So would you classify that as too restrictive? Because that covers a few things. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one.
So, and yet for someone else, that is going to be for them, okay, I know that everyone in this org is going to be really loyal and have my back, and and so that might be a real good positive then. Whereas what I prefer might be a red flag for someone else. So you've got to look for the things that go to your play style rather than something else. Don't join it just because it's a big org or because it's X.
Yeah,
join it because it matches your play style.
Kind of stole the one I was going to say. Yeah, that was what I was going to say. I was going to
sorry.
say no, that's all right. That's all right. I was going to say I think at the end of the day, you do have to find an org that matches you. So if they're like mine and Algared's org and somewhat inactive, but if you want one that's active, then you kind of need to look for one that suits you. So Loudsguns, in about what he said about restrictions, is there anything else that you find falls under restrictions that or just you just want to talk about in general?
I think this is sort of slipping into the things to watch out for, but it might be for you because like for some people's goal in the game is to be, in the number one mercenary org.
Yep.
For instance.
Yep.
And if the number one mercenary org doesn't have some standards in terms of how good you are, like objectively, can you beat this person in combat?
Yeah.
Or not? And if the number one mercenary org doesn't have some sort of restrictiveness in terms of you must practice on a Tuesday and a Friday night,
yep,
you're not going to be the number one mercenary org for long. And by letting everybody in, that org is not going to be what it promised its original members. So while that org wouldn't be for me, it might be for you.
I think I think what you're saying there really kind of covers the whole thing. Like, an org has to line up with what you want. Like, I've seen orgs that won't allow piracy at all, but there are going to be some people that want to go between different types of gameplay. Like, I've seen orgs that are just space truckers, but if you want to do salvage, you're shit out of luck. And like you said, like if you can only do what they tell you to do, like you can't have a second org and only be a space trucker. Well, why have I got this Orion if all you're ever going to let me do is do, work in a abandoned merchantman or whatever? Like, again, I think that's the biggest restriction. You need to find an org that lines up with your values, and there are advantages to small orgs and big orgs because of that. And we'll probably see over time too sister orgs and brother orgs that work together. So like this cargo org will work with this salvaging org, and etc. etc. But for me, I don't know about you guys, I want an org that's just a bit more open and allows you to kind of, like, for me, it's more like friends that play together. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for restrictions. I just want people I know that are going to want to be there and turn up and do stuff together. Because again, as I said, this game to me is all the people I've met along the way. It's the friends I've made. It's not the game itself. The game is just something to do with my mates. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Often if people have asked me, should I join your org? I'll say, look, if you enjoy playing with us, join us. But if you decide, oh man, this org next door is more to my liking, or they're the people I've run into these guys, I actually really get on with these guys. I like you guys, but I really get on with these guys. Are you going to feel bad if I leave? No, just at the end of the day, you've got to find an org that not only matches your play style, but also the people in the org are people who click with you. And
so what we're kind of talking about now is actually what to look for in an org. So everything I've mentioned just there and what Algared's mentioning is, friends, good people, community, those type of things. That they're the things to look for. So let's pivot into that. So what is Algared? What are some things that people should look for?
Well, I think it comes down to that friends and good people. So initially, when you're looking for an org, you don't know anyone in your, if you don't know anyone in your org, like for me, myself, when I joined the org I'm in, I looked for an org that was an Australian org. And in the past, I'd been in very small orgs, so I said, okay, I'm looking for a big Australian org. And at the time, there were two. There was an org that came from other games and was focused on and played Star Citizen well. And then there was the org I joined, which was Star Citizen and played other games as well. And so I went, okay, I'm into Star Citizen. That's the one that won out.
Yeah.
But over time, it was a matter, I'm still in the org because of the people I met, and it matched the style of play I was looking for.
And
but it was the people I met who kept me there.
We've met some of those people in real life now too, haven't we? Over time, we've actually got that rapport going.
A lot of the people that I know from the org, even though I hadn't met them at PAX Australia in 2014, I met them that year. And so from 2014, I've probably seen them, apart from the years of COVID, probably 2 or 3 times a year. Yeah. And so I enjoy the people, I enjoy that group, and I enjoy the things we do within the org. And so for me, that is a perfect org. Are we the best combat ship pilots? Probably not. Are we the best FPSs? Probably not. Are we the best salvagers? Probably not. Are we the best? But for me, it works.
Yeah, it's the camaraderie. So what about you, Loudsguns? What is some positives for you and things to look for in a good org?
Well, yeah, it definitely follows on from Al's point, because I think if you find those people that you gel with, they won't have a problem with understanding real life. And it's really possible because Star Cit's so complicated and sort of games like it are so complicated. It's really possible to take it very, very seriously without even trying to. Even if you're semi-casuals like I tend to be, I can still get pretty nerdy into the numbers and working out a good operation and all that sort of stuff. That's when that all ticks and works. That's what makes me really have the best time in the game. But at the same time, just like never forget that it's pixels behind a computer screen.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Real life is always going to take precedence, and it's actually a big concern of mine, because there's a lot of people out there I know that they've brought in quite extensively into the game, and they're just not going to have time to do it. They've got kids, family, work, all that type of stuff, and they're just not going to have the time. But yeah, we'll see.
So ideally, sort of an org should always org leadership and your org mates should just be encouraging you to put life first. Yeah, like we all should.
Yeah. So kind of counteractively to what's not good is less requirements, or requirements that fit with you. So events that you want to do. They allow you to buy the ships you want to buy. Some other good things can be they also possibly fill gaps that you don't have. So if you're massive, like for example, say Loudsguns had an Orion and I have a Reclaimer, but we both want to do the opposite. There's obviously benefits there, where that can go the other way. Obviously, we didn't mention that before. A negative, like you must buy this ship, as we kind of said, because someone else has already got that one. Stuff like that. You don't want to be lorded over or told what to buy, especially if everything falls apart. And between now and release, and you shift orgs, and you're stuck with a ship. Well, I guess you wouldn't be stuck. There'll be a way to get out of it. But you've got a ship that you don't want. You want to buy what you enjoy and stuff like that. So for me, I don't want over governance. I think that one might call that over governance. Does that cover it?
Yeah.
So yeah. All right then. Is there anything else you guys want to add? Because I think we're at the point where we can kind of wrap this up.
I think we're at the point where we can wrap it up. And so I think the key takeaway is the first step, because if you're looking for an org, unless you've actually got mates who say, "Hey, join this org and play the game with me," find an org that does the type of gameplay you're into.
Yeah.
And then if you find that is true, and that org is filling that jam, is doing that for you and filling, is your jam, and you enjoy the people, then hey, you stay there. But if you find you hate the people, or you're just not getting on with the people, find another org that does that.
Yeah. I've just realized something. How do you find an org? So how does someone go about going and finding an org that suits their needs? And everyone's got different needs, obviously. Yeah. So how would you go about that, Loudsguns? If you were going at this again, how would you recommend someone go find an org that's into what they're into?
Yeah, so a good place to start is Spectrum. You can head to Spectrum, and there's an organizations section. I have a long list of things that I would love to see on there for them to improve it. Yep. But it is there, and pretty much all organizations have have a presence there. You can sort them by the type of gameplay. You can sort them by the the ratio from casual to hardcore. That you got factors in there, even like things like role playing, which is something which a lot of people really enjoy. So you can narrow down your orgs. The other way really is looking for things like for instance my videos will have a link to the org Discord in them. There are a lot of other people on YouTube and Twitch who are on YouTube and Twitch because they are sort of in an org.
So you can go through a content creators org. You can find a content creator that's into the same stuff you're into. I think the big one for me that'll probably happen a lot more once the game is out is just doing what you're doing, and you'll run into other people that are doing what you're doing, right? And I've had that in game already, where I've met friends with people. But I think once the rating system comes in, like I might be out in my little vulture doing my stuff, and then I'm like, oh, I want to try something else. So I look up a rating thing, and there's a guy on a reclaimer, and I just start playing with him and get on with him, and it just one thing leads to another, and we become friends, and so I think there is.
One of you says, "Hey, I'm in this org," and the other one, if one doesn't have an org and the one does, then you end up joining that org.
What I'm fundamentally saying is another takeaway I want to add to what Algared was kind of saying about takeaways is that there is a natural progression to this game to pushing you together, and I don't think a lot of people, and you kind of said it yourself too, not a lot of people are ready for that. Like they're like, I'm just going to have my prospector, and I'm going to play on my own, and that's all I'm ever going to do. And I think that's just a little bit too narrow. But if they want to do that, that's fine. But I think the other counterpoint to that is if they think they're going to take something like a really big ship and fill it full of NPCs, it's just not going to have the same.
The javelin. All the names just get jumbled in, but trying to take a javelin out with all NPCs or blades by yourself, I think is insane. Could you do it? Absolutely. Could you fly it without any of it? Probably. But is it the best? Are you going to be victim to a group that decides to take it? Yeah.
I played a game called Atlas a little while back, and it was quite a good one in terms of it had NPC crew. It was all pirate ships, like sailing around. And one of my favorite videos is.
Sorry, just to clarify, that's the Ark reskin, yeah?
Yeah, it was basically a reskin of Ark that they did a bit of a money grab with, but it had ships which it was cool in that you could hire NPC crew to man all of your cannons. So you could go to a port and load up your ship. And I do remember one of the best videos was there was a ship called a galleon, which was like your javelin, and then there was a ship called a schooner, which was like your redeemer type thing. And there was a video of two galleons getting taken down by one schooner because the schooner was fully crewed. And it was great. These American lads were they were literally running from like one side of the ship and then all just running to the other side of the ship as it like turned and they got the other cannons to bear. But they were just so much better than NPCs could ever be. And anyone who believes that NPCs will ever outperform players at the top level,
I'm trying to remember this.
It's never happened in a game yet.
There's this pirate game, and someone in the comments will let me know. I'm trying to remember it for the life of me. I haven't played in a couple of years, but it's on Steam, and you play in a pirate ship, and it's multiplayer, and there's all these different. No, it's not Sea of Thieves. It's just combat though, and you can someone pirates the ship, someone can go up the thing and they get a telescope and can see further. You have to all the cannons are like really manually everything is very manual. So you got to like put in the cannonball, put in the powder, stuff it in, pack it, and then light the fuse, and it fires like 4 seconds later. All this stuff. It's very, again, it's another good game that gives you that teamwork and fidelity of doing things like in Star Citizen. And I just can't remember the name of it. Blackway? Yeah, something like that. Black Sails or something like that. Yeah, that's the one. But yeah, that is it, Algared. It's something along those lines. So yeah, and that's a great little game. I think it's kind of died off a lot now because it was very cheap. Came out for like $20, and it was really good for about 6 months. And I know it's died off, but that is a great game if you can get it cheap.
But here from memory, the guy who made it was in our org.
Oh, really?
Star Citizen.
I didn't know that. I'll have to go talk to him because that was a brilliant little game. It was fantastic. I love that. I played the crap out of it. It was so much fun because you just, again, that anything that had that multi-crew, I was looking for that type of stuff, and that's another really good example of that. Sorry to pirate off your
No.
Yeah.
Slow point. And appropriately pirated.
Yes.
I think. I just think one thing to say to people is not to be too scared to go and find people to play with, not to be too concerned about it. Like names like organization, clan, guild, they put a bit of fear in, but a lot of these things are just communities to get people playing together.
I think it's really important too from a social aspect. A lot of people in real life have been burned by social anxiety and things that can go wrong and stuff. But Algared will back me up here. You go into a bar citizen, aka also go into game, you naturally have a rapport with that person because you're into the same thing. And it is just so refreshing. Like from a bar citizen perspective, you walk in and you can just walk up to anyone and go, what's your favorite manufacturer? What's your favorite chip? Just any basic level Star Citizen question, and you're off to the races.
I was talking to someone the other day. They were talking about they'd rather just be in a bar talking Star Citizen, and that's what they loved about Bar Citizen. You could the very thing they want to do when they're sitting there having a beer was the very thing that Bar Citizen you sit there have a beer or a drink or whatever beverage you're drinking and food, and you're talking the thing you really enjoy. And when you're a Bar Citizen, you're not looked at like a weirdo.
Very hard to find people in real life that are into the same stuff you're into now because there's just such a variety out there. So it is good when you just know you can walk into a room and you're going to click with every single person. And that is a rarity in our world these days.
Yep.
All right, then, Loudsguns, where can people find you on the interwebs?
So it's just YouTube at Loudsguns now that we've got these tag things in.
Yep.
And sort of every video will have a link through to our Discord. We just try and get people together. So we've got a big community side to it. There is absolutely no pressure to come and join the org.
Yeah.
So if you want to chat or you just want to get involved in a taste of multi-crew, then feel free to just follow that link in any of the videos.
Yeah, we've got a big community too, but we keep getting asked to do it all, but kind of don't want to do one because there's just we see what Space Tomato does, and he's just got so much extra work. We don't want to deal with that. So maybe there is
a lot of work in it. Yeah. There is a lot of work in it, and thankfully there are a lot of people who it is not just me. There are a lot of people around me who run events and all that sort of stuff. So it's really down to them that it's kept going.
So what would you like to hear from people in the comments, Loudsguns? Is there anything you would like to hear back specifically?
Just people's experiences about sort of the good and the bad, and I think the danger sometimes is we fixate as people on the bad experiences. So it'd be great to hear about some good experiences as well, just to maybe encourage somebody who's thinking about going for an org or a community to go. It's not all bad. It's not all horror stories.
But I think now's the time to actually explore and look for orgs, because at the moment nothing in the game matters. Death of a spaceman doesn't matter. We're in alpha. You blow up your ships doesn't matter. You know, your insurance isn't a thing. So now's the time to experiment and find out the things you're doing and take a risk. I tell my students, I'm a language teacher, and I tell my students, we're learning a language we don't know. If you can't take a gamble and have a guess and get it and get it wrong when you're learning something brand new, when can you ever get it wrong? When can you ever take that gamble?
I think you can take that into gameplay as well, Algared. You know, try out the different. You know, you might the thought of piracy might totally scare you, but you should go try it because at least then you know what it's like from the other side of the coin.
And at the moment, it doesn't matter because we get a wipe, fix the things when we eventually go past alpha into beta and eventually the published final version of a game, whatever that mark will be. That's when it'll matter, but at the moment, it doesn't. So
what do you want to hear from people in the comments below, Algared?
Yeah, I think I'd go with the types of things Loudsguns were saying. What are your good, your bad, and your ugly experiences to take the old Western movie? What are the good things? What are the aspects? What are the good things you look for? What are the red flags for you? Are we just full of it in terms of what we're seeing?
I think I'll go along the lines of what we were talking about with games. So I'd like to see some recommendations for games that are good for orgs, good for Star Citizen gameplay, and why. So not just don't just give me the title, but tell me what you got out of them. Like kind of what I said about how the cargo factor works in eco, and how Loudsguns talked about the tribes. You know, kind of shows you what a crew's like to work with and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's some good game suggestions that people can try out while we're all waiting for Star Citizen to get finished. So yeah. All right, with that then, if you like this type of content, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. We have had a lot of people telling us they're not getting all of our videos. If you want to go the extra mile, you can do it on Patreon, YouTube memberships, Twitch memberships. Algared, is there anything I've missed? I'm terrible at this stuff. But
well, I will say, if you're coming back a second or a third time, you clearly like what we're doing. But our analytics tell us that most of you who return back haven't subscribed. And so if you haven't subscribed and you're coming back, consider it, because it actually does help the channel.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That's the biggest way you can support us, is just give us a subscribe. But yeah, if you do like our content, also like it, because it obviously pushes it further and more people discover us and stuff like that. All right, Loudsguns, thanks for joining us. Yeah, I did check out some of your videos.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, but you're more than welcome to. I did like your video this week, actually. It was quite good. So I can recommend you go check out some of his stuff. I would like to get you back again, Loudsguns, when we get towards Invictus, because I know, like us, you've done a lot of CCU stuff as well. So it'd be good to get you in there and give us your take on, tell us some of the things that you think you do a little differently and stuff like that, because we value differing opinions. So, and it gives people different perspectives. So yeah, we'll try and get you back towards Invictus. All right, Algared.
Yeah, awesome.
Is there anything you want to add, Algared, or are we all done?
I think that's it.
Cool. All right, with that then, he's been Loudsguns. He's been Algared.
He's been Execute. And we're out of here.
We'll catch you the next one. Say goodbye, Loudsguns.
Bye, Loudsguns.
Why do they always do that? Every damn time. I'm done.